Welcome to the debate. Imagine your entire life, your career, your reputation, the safety of your family is being systematically dismantled by an anonymous account on the internet. Your immediate instinct is to fight back, right? To defend yourself publicly. But what if the only way to permanently destroy your attacker is to legally offer them the very money they are trying to extort from you?
It's a terrifying scenario, really. And it fundamentally breaks how we usually think about power dynamics. Because normally, the person with the public profile, the established career, the known legal identity, they hold the cards.
Exactly.
But in the world of digital reputation and, well, transnational cyberstalking, that asymmetry flips entirely. The public figure has everything to lose, while the anonymous attacker operates with, almost zero initial risk.
Which brings us precisely to the focus of today's discourse. We are looking at the strategic and legal implications of the latest, incredibly significant forensic milestones in the transnational digital warfare case between Alberto Daniel Hill, an internationally recognized cybersecurity expert, and his former partner, Suvi Hill, who operated online under the alias @CyberGirl10.
Right. And we need to frame the central question we are debating today. Does Alberto's rigorous application of what he calls radical transparency, combined with, frankly, incredibly complex multi-jurisdictional legal protocols, does it represent a definitive, necessary victory that neutralizes a malicious campaign, or does it trigger a disproportionate, devastating legal pincer that rapidly accelerates the destruction of a psychologically vulnerable aggressor?
Yeah, to put it bluntly, does this milestone make things drastically worse and significantly faster for the woman involved? Because we have to remember the original forecast for this conflict. When this all started, the consensus was pretty clear. Things would only get worse. The attacks from the woman would become more damaging, and the two of them would essentially just, destroy each other online.
Right. And the key to that forecast was the assumption that the famous high-profile expert would inevitably lose more simply because of the inherent asymmetry of digital trust. I mean, he had a reputation to ruin. She was a ghost. But today, we are examining how recent interactions and decisive Italian judicial decisions have, well, completely upended that forecast.
So, to lay out where I stand, I argue that this forensic milestone, which is defined by a rigorous strategy of data over drama, is a triumph of systemic justice, proving that strict adherence to institutional protocols can successfully reverse the asymmetric damage typically suffered by high-profile victims.
And I argue that while this milestone is undoubtedly legally effective, it weaponizes transnational law to rapidly corner a party suffering from displaced aggression, essentially fulfilling the forecast of mutual destruction by simply shifting the catastrophic loss entirely onto her.
Well, let's start by looking at the sheer efficacy of these recent milestones, because the specific interactions we've seen today they're profound, and they completely change the landscape of this conflict. First, the @CyberGirl10X account has been officially suspended by the platform for violating rules regarding targeted abuse.
Yeah, that's a huge shift.
It is. But more importantly, she fell directly into what the legal dossiers are calling the passport trap.
Wait, let's pause right there. Break that down for the listener, because the passport trap is kind of the hinge this entire case swings on. How exactly did he use her own extortion against her?
It is actually a brilliant piece of legal engineering. So for months, Suvi had been claiming across high-trust networks like LinkedIn and X that Alberto was a romance scammer who had stolen her money. She demanded a 6,000 euro settlement. So Alberto's legal team did something totally counterintuitive. They formally offered her the disputed 6,000 euros via Western Union.
But with a catch.
A massive catch. To wire that amount of money internationally, banking laws require mandatory anti-money laundering, or AML compliance. That means identity documentation. Specifically, to receive the funds, she had to provide a passport copy matching her legal name to Alberto's legal counsel.
Which she completely refused to provide.
Exactly. And her refusal is what forensically destroyed her own public narrative by legally proving he had the funds ready to transfer and proving that she was the one blocking the transaction by refusing standard banking compliance. Well, he proved to the authorities that she didn't actually want the money. She was maintaining the financial impasse solely as a mechanism for extortion and continued psychological tracking. If she took the money, the connection would be severed.
Right, she needed the conflict more than she needed the resolution.
Precisely. And this transition from anonymity to total liability is a definitive victory. The famous figure did not lose more. Alongside the trap, he secured clean clinical toxicology panels to empirically defeat her smears that he was a cocaine user. He utilized the rule of law to neutralize a campaign that had severely damaged his professional standing and, more tragically, had physically confined his 73-year-old mother to a wheelchair due to acute panic-induced distress.
I acknowledge the meticulous nature of these forensic dossiers. I mean, they are a masterclass in digital preservation and legal strategy. But we really have to look at the human and systemic fallout here. This milestone makes things exponentially worse and much, much faster for the woman. We have to understand the psychology at play. The clinical assessments in the file point to displaced aggression.
Meaning what exactly in this context?
Well, think of it like a lightning rod. She is a mother who is completely exhausted and depleted from a high-conflict custody battle in Belgium. She is dealing with the immense trauma of her ex-husband allegedly smuggling their 11-year-old daughter across European borders without an ID. She felt utterly powerless against that massive, unmanageable storm.
Right.
She couldn't strike back at her ex-husband effectively, so the electricity had to ground itself somewhere. Alberto's public profile was simply the tallest metal pole in the field. This is a classic psychological target mismatch.
I hear that, but look at the actual interactions today. It reveals a massive behavioral paradox. Alberto implemented a strict zero-contact policy through his legal counsel, Dr. Jorge Henderson. He explicitly withdrew from the public digital space to rely entirely on formal legal channels. And how did Suvi respond today? She violated that legal boundary by sending 6 consecutive emails. Furthermore, she refused to take down the defamatory posts despite explicit legally binding warnings.
I come at it from a different way because she is operating under total ego depletion. She doesn't have the cognitive bandwidth to play a rational legal chess match.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because her choices, not his strategy, triggered the outcome. Her refusal to stop directly activated the automatic corporate and extrajudicial execution clauses drafted by his legal team. You are looking at her as a passive victim of a legal system, but she is actively generating the artifacts of her own destruction. She chose to continue.
Sure, on paper that makes sense, but you're ignoring the sheer scale of the retaliation. The outcome we are looking at today isn't just the legal defense. It's total multi-jurisdictional ruin. Because she sent those emails, Alberto's legal team is sending the full, certified cyber harassment dossier straight to her company's HR and compliance departments.
Which is standard corporate protocol when public defamation occurs.
But she now faces corporate HR notifications that will almost certainly result in termination for cause. She is facing a $335,000 civil lawsuit for damages. This moves from simply defending a reputation to intentionally dismantling her real-world livelihood.
I have to push back on that framing. You are stripping her of all agency. Let me offer an analogy. If a person is drowning and panicking in the ocean, we can have deep empathy for their terror, but they don't have the right to pull a rescuer under the water to drown with them. Her trauma regarding her ex-husband does not excuse her actively tagging Alberto as a cocaine user on LinkedIn.
But LinkedIn is just a platform.
No, LinkedIn is a high-trust professional network where cybersecurity experts literally trade on their integrity. You cannot launch a multi-platform digital assassination campaign, threaten a man's elderly mother, and then claim immunity because you are, tired from a different lawsuit. The passport trap proves this wasn't just venting, it was calculated.
Okay, let's talk about the calculation, and let's move to how this legal trap actually becomes a physical cage. Because proving she lied about the money is only half the battle. Tell me how the Italian justice system changes the math here, because this is where the speed of her destruction exponentially accelerates.
Gladly. The Italian connection is vital here because Alberto holds dual citizenship. He didn't just file a local police report in Uruguay where he lives, he leveraged his European citizenship to engage the Italian Garante della Privacy and the Polizia Postale.
And what is the actual mechanism there? I mean, why does Italy care about a digital dispute originating in South America?
Because an attack on an Italian citizen's digital infrastructure is treated as an attack within Italian jurisdiction. And Alberto's team didn't just send screenshots, they sent cryptographic hashes of her posts.
Right, the metadata.
Exactly. For the listener, a cryptographic hash is like a digital fingerprint that locks a piece of data in time. It proves mathematically that a post existed at a specific second, making it completely useless for her to delete it later. They combined this with timestamp correlations showing coordinated bursts of defamation. Italy recognized the undeniable forensic proof, and they registered it under Article 612 bis for aggravated cyberstalking and Article 595 for aggravated defamation.
And how did they notify her? Because she has claimed she didn't know the extent of the legal trouble.
Well, that defense is gone as of today. The Italian system issued what is called a completa receipt via their secure Aruba PEC email servers. PEC stands for Posta Elettronica Certificata. In Italy, a PEC email has the exact same legal weight as a physical registered letter signed for at your front door. It is absolute legal proof of delivery. She can no longer claim ignorance.
And this is exactly where I argue this system becomes wildly disproportionate. Do you understand how the Italian system makes things incredibly worse and exponentially faster for her? This isn't just about a fine. By registering Article 612 bis, Italy escalates what started as a Twitter dispute into a potential European arrest warrant.
Because it is a felony.
But look at the acceleration. It introduces the risk of Schengen Information System, or SIS alerts. For our listeners, an SIS alert means her passport is flagged across the entire European borderless zone. She could be detained at any random border checkpoint, any airport, any train station in Europe. And worse, Alberto's legal team is bringing in Article 574 bis, which covers minor subtraction.
Which is entirely relevant given her cross-border movements with her child.
But it directly feeds her cross-border transit data to Italian and Belgian authorities, actively dismantling her custody metrics with her ex-husband. The speed at which she went from being an online troll to facing 1 to 6.5 years in an Italian prison is staggering. It takes her real-world vulnerability, her child, her mobility, and weaponizes it.
Should the Italian justice system ignore documented transnational cyberstalking just because the perpetrator is a distressed mother? The system acts fast precisely because the data is undeniable. Furthermore, under Italian jurisprudence, her decision to legally change her surname to Hill when there was no marriage or kinship isn't viewed as just some emotional quirk. The courts view that as an objective manifestation of premeditated obsessive identity alignment. The system isn't overreacting. It is correctly processing a highly sophisticated threat.
I am not arguing the data is fake. I am arguing that the machine is blind to the human collateral damage it creates once it's turned on. Let's revisit the original forecast of this conflict, because this is where the core tension lies. The baseline assumption in digital warfare is that the famous, known expert will always lose more in an asymmetric attack.
And Alberto did suffer terrible collateral damage. Let's not minimize that.
Absolutely not. I mean, the medical certificates in the file from Dr. Luis Rodriguez and Dr. Omaral document a severe physiological collapse. His 73-year-old mother was pushed into wheelchair immobility. But here is the critical difference. Alberto possessed elite, top-tier technical skills. He is literally in the top 1 to 3% of cybersecurity experts in Latin America. He had the capability to build a forensic juggernaut. The woman, conversely, operated under the complete illusion of digital anonymity.
What she shattered herself.
But the outcome we are seeing today completely reverses that original forecast. The assumption was mutual destruction, where he lost more. Instead, it leaves her permanently digitally indexed as a criminal, effectively destroying her entirely, while he rebuilds.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. The original forecast was actually almost correct. He did lose immensely. His entire professional ecosystem is built on trust, on being an ethical hacker who uncovers the truth. When you are branded a scammer and a drug user in that industry, your market value plummets instantly. The only reason he isn't losing more today, the only reason he survived this,
is because he refused to engage emotionally.
He engaged legally.
He engaged with radical transparency. He didn't fire back with insults on Twitter. He preserved the metadata. He locked down his communication, and he forced the conflict into a highly structured legal ecosystem where emotional manipulation holds absolutely zero weight. The truth is, the forecast of the public figure losing more only holds true if the public figure fights on the troll's terms. Alberto changed the battlefield.
I just don't buy that it's merely a defensive survival tactic. Let me tell you why. Let's look at the mechanism of what he did to her digital presence. He initiated what the tech world calls a global session kill via Meta and X infrastructure.
For the listeners who don't work in cybersecurity, explain what that looks like in practice.
Sure. Think of it like pulling the master circuit breaker on a house, but for your digital life. He didn't just report a single post to a moderator. He utilized infrastructure-level legal requests to systemically sever her access across multiple platforms at once. By successfully deplatforming her today, getting the X account suspended, and cornering her financially through the AML trap and legally through the Italian Procura, he hasn't just survived. He has actively engineered her total digital and legal displacement.
He neutralized the weapon she was using to attack it.
He deployed a multinational legal weapon of his own. The initial forecast of mutual destruction was entirely accurate. The difference is that the massive technological and legal imbalance ensured she would be the one structurally annihilated. She is going to lose her job because of the HR notifications. She is going to lose her mobility across European borders because of the SIS alerts. And she is potentially going to lose her custody rights because of the family court data sharing. That isn't just winning a digital dispute. That is total, absolute destruction of a human life.
But we keep coming back to the same fundamental point here. She generated the artifacts of her own destruction. Every interaction she made today was an artifact. Every lie she posted was a documented trail. If she had provided the AML documentation, the trap wouldn't have worked. If she hadn't sent the 6 emails violating the zero-contact policy today, the corporate HR clauses wouldn't have triggered.
You are expecting rational restraint from a person in the middle of a psychological breakdown.
And you are expecting a victim of sustained malicious stalking to just absorb the damage to protect his attacker's livelihood. If we summarize the meaning of this milestone today, the suspension of the X account and the activation of the Italian protocols proves something vital for everyone who lives online. It proves that structured truth and rigorous legal frameworks can successfully combat manufactured narratives and digital assassinations.
At a terrible cost.
A necessary cost. This outcome demonstrates that accountability, not anonymity, is the final currency in cyberspace. If you weaponize high-trust networks to destroy an innocent person, the rule of law will eventually catch up with the metadata. The Italian system proves that borders and screen names do not protect you from the consequences of extortion.
And from my perspective, the summary is much darker. While the forensic truth undoubtedly prevailed, it did so by unleashing a multinational legal apparatus that exponentially worsened the woman's situation at a breakneck speed. This milestone serves as a chilling reminder that when displaced, psychological aggression meets elite, asymmetric legal warfare, the resulting destruction is absolute. The machinery of justice, once it is fully engaged with cryptographic proof and international warrants, does not care about your ego depletion. It does not care about your custody battle. It simply executes.
Both of these realities exist simultaneously. On one hand, Alberto had an absolute right and a duty to his mother and his career to defend himself using every legal tool available. On the other, we have to reflect on the profound, real-world human cost of cyber displacement. The intersection of trauma, cybersecurity, and transnational law contains depths that are still left to explore in these case files.
Yeah, it brings us right back to that idea of the legal system as an X-ray. We look at the protocols, the cryptographic hashes, and the Italian penal codes, hoping that this flawless forensic data will give us a perfectly precise picture of justice. But sometimes even the clearest, most precise legal X-ray still reveals a fundamentally broken human reality.
And it leaves all of us to weigh the terrifying balance between the absolute necessity of defending one's life and the devastating totality of legal retaliation.